gardens people are always having fun. Out there in the garden, in the rain and the sun.
So the idea of a wicking bed, are people familiar with wicking beds? Not everybody is. Wicking bed that I'm going to make is really good because normally if you have a garden bed, you have holes at the bottom, don't you? Water can drain out the bottom. Now, if you're living on brick paving and you've got a garden bed just in your little courtyard or wherever, and you've got water coming out the bottom, that might be a problem. And a wicking bed is actually totally enclosed. It does have a drain, but a drain at the side. So remember the days of the old self-watering pots? Everybody was in fashion for the self-watering pot. In Perth, we've got the unfortunate position of a long, hot, dry summer. We think it never rains. It actually rains quite a bit, but just in the winter time. So the summer is a long, hot, dry time. So we're trying to keep things moist. And that's hard, particularly if you're living in a soil where the water might just drain away. So the idea of the wicking bed is that the water is at the bottom. Now, if you have, like I said before, if you have a garden bed, you would normally put holes in the bottom. Now, I've got this, everyone says, oh my goodness, you've got a plastic box. Well, the plastic box is here because normally this plastic box, or you can be the prop supervisor, yeah? The plastic box would normally be thrown away. So I get this from a fruit and veg shop. You won't get them from Coles or Woolies because they come in huge big crates. But this is usually a broccoli box that a fruit and veg shop will have. And they're getting a bit cagey now. They might charge you $1 for each box, but you should be able to get them fairly cheap or given away. They give them to me. And if I was going to grow them in this, I'd normally put holes in the bottom. But if I'm going to do a wicking bed, I want that bottom part to be holding moisture. Now, how do I do that? Now, you see the fancy ones, and you go on the YouTube again, you'll have perlite, you'll have all sorts of things in the bottom, but you had to buy that. I don't want to buy anything. So what have I got at home? Maybe I've got some broken bricks or bits of stone or something. I probably wouldn't put limestone in because that might make the water a lot too alkaline. But if I've got broken bricks, but the broken bricks, well, firstly I might have to break them, secondly I mightn't have them, and thirdly it's going to make my pot really heavy even before I put any soil in. But what I have got, I might have lots of pots. Okay, now what we've got here, people give us lots of plastic pots. Now all the bottom part is, all it has to do is hold up the division between the water and the soil. Now some people might just put soil in all the way. I don't want that to happen. I don't want the soil to be permanently sitting in water. So I need some kind of division between that. So what's holding up that division is going to be these pots. Now I've got lots of pots. Okay, so they're going to be taken apart. Now you're taking it apart. Okay.
I thought I was.
Yeah. Okay. So,
hold it up.
Yeah, now what you're doing is I'm going to put the pots at the bottom.
Like this?
Like that, yeah. So all this is holding up my next layer. Okay, now if you look around here, if you went into the other part there, you might have seen some fridges. We had bigger pots in there because the fridges were deeper. I would never use anything more shallow than this. You know, sometimes on the side of the road you see those big shells that kids play with, those big sand pits and water. I think they're too shallow, because you're losing a lot of the beautiful. You might be able to fit another one in, or have we run out?
That's all the pots I've got.
That's all the
I
pots.
would put more in if I had them.
No, that's okay. We'll stuff it with things.
So imagine everybody, a couple more pots in there.
No, it's all right. We'll sort it out. But I think those are too shallow because we're losing a lot of the soil space because we have to put the water in. But we don't want too little water because we do need a decent reservoir. So I think this is a decent compromise. Because if I had this full of soil, I'd have a lot more moisture being held in there. But I've got probably this much soil now.
What about on the inside?
No, it's not, no.
Don't mess with the formula.
Stick with the formula. Now, we've got an op shop. Okay, you've got a pile of clothes at home. I find clothes on the road. I mean, Mandy's riding a bike, rides a bike too, probably find things on the road. I often pick up t-shirts and things. I prefer synthetic. I'd probably prefer t-shirts so you're stuffing these in amongst the... In there. This is where I used to work, so bugger them. Just in here, they gave me the sack. No, you're not. You're putting some at the top, so you're putting them in between the pots, and you're putting some so that they cover the pots as well. Because the idea is, if we put water in this, and we want the water to wick up, because the idea of a wick, think of a candle, is that the wax moves up the wick, and so that's what burns. We want the water to move up here. Now, water is not going to move up a plastic pot. It won't. If it was bricks or other bits of stones, it would move up. It would capillary action up. But it's plastic's hydrophobic.
Am I doing all right?
So kind of, yeah. Now we want.
With my technique.
Well, we want some to be at the top as well. Okay, so we've got some t-shirts in between, some that will be touching the bottom, and some that are, yeah, now you've got plenty there, Tam, don't be shy. Okay, so we're putting some in between the pots and we're putting some on top as well. Okay, so when water goes in the bottom, it's going to touch the t-shirts, it's going to go all through the pots, it's going to touch the t-shirts are going to get wet, and then on top of the t-shirts, that's probably a bit too excessive. Yeah, okay. Thought I'd trick you. Okay, so at the end, vacuum cleaner hose. You know the verge throwouts, we all walk past the vacuum cleaners, don't we? Because we know they're not going to work. Well, you're not going to anymore. You're going to cut the vacuum cleaner pipe off, because this is now going to be the water inlet to go into your wicking bed. Okay, so at one end, beautiful, it's going to go there. Now, the other thing you'll need is a sock. So under the bed, you've all got the odd sock that's sitting under the bed that's got nowhere to go. Isn't it amazing? George, I must tell this story.
It's a bit holy, Peg.
It's a bit, oh, it shouldn't be. Try and get the bits that are not holy. Because we don't, that's the idea, is keeping the mozzies out. I'll just tell you a quick story about George, the eternal optimist. He keeps all the socks, pins them onto a coat hanger and hangs them in the wardrobe, waiting for the other sock to arrive. Isn't that amazing? Some have been there for 20 years. Incredible. So this sock is going on this bit of vacuum cleaner hose, and that's going to sit above the top there. Now what we're doing, Tam, is you've got a bit of old carpet, not rubber backed, but it can be synthetic. I don't like wool because, and I try and get synthetic clothing because it rots if you've got natural fibre. I mean, we all love natural fibre, but this is a time when it's probably better not to have natural fibre. So you're covering that as much as you can. See, I've got scrappy bits because I wanted to show you can use scrappy bits as well. And there, we're covering that over. So you see,
What about oven mitts? Would they work?
oven mitts might be a bit thick, but that you can try them. Of course you can. Now here, that can go a bit up the side. Now you're pushing that down nicely. Push down, okay? So then, I would see where this is, and I would put a little hole just below the carpet line. Okay, just below that. It's all right, all the instructions are on here. You can take a photo or take some instructions away. And then you're going to fill this. You see how there's not much soil space now, but I'm pushing this down. You probably push it down a bit more. Whoever gets this, whoever takes it home can do that as well. Fill it up with moist soil. Everything starts off wet. Okay, so if you happen to go away and let this dry out over a few days or weeks, and some of those out the front have been let dry, you must wet the soil again. Not just filling up the bottom will not cause it to wick. It has to be wet to start with. You'll fill that with wet soil. I will put, no, you're not pushing it down like that.
That's why I didn't volunteer to do that. I've done it before.
Keep that up like that. Yeah, okay. So we're filling that with soil. And then when you fill this with water, you can put seeds in it, and I would put mulch on the top too to reduce the evaporation. Okay, so fill it really, really high, as much as you can, and a little bit of, as I said, mulch on the top. I use wood mulch, firstly because it's free, and secondly, firstly because it's free. That's the main reason. And if it was straw mulch, I had to buy it, and I don't want to buy it. Okay, so now let's have a look, Tam. Can you? That's the one that we've made. Now this is one here. This is quite heavy. If you're moving it, be careful that you don't break the foam box. It's quite. I didn't empty the water. Normally when you're emptying it, you can empty the water out, but I just didn't have time. So if we just set that down there. Yeah, it is. Just down on the ground. Okay, so this has been the summer, and it's fairly good. It's quite good. I still need a bit of shade, so you still need shade in those blazing times. But you've got water coming continuously. If you're planting seeds in the top, I water at the top for a while just to get the seeds going. Now that's God ugly, isn't it? So what do? We make a surrounding for it. So this is where your skill and technique will be really coming into the fore. You're putting that over the top. Okay, so this is just like the beds out the front.
Probably better to do this before you got the plants growing, I would think.
Yeah, we usually do that. But for transport, I don't have it like that. Now what I suggest, if you make one, don't make it the exact size of the garden bed because the bed kind of expands. So lesson learnt, Peg, the first one. So now we have a wooden planter box. Who would know? So if I live in a small apartment or I live in a place that I just want one box like that, I would have a hole in the side, which this one's got, and I'd have a hole in the side of this, and you can put a little bit of pipe coming out and catch the water so you haven't got water flowing everywhere, which you would have if you had holes at the bottom. But yeah, I mean, this is just a bit of old scrap wood, and I paint it with linseed oil just to preserve it a bit longer. And you'll see the ones in the garden up there we keep above the ground because they're just mostly pine or other softwood, because we don't want any white ants to be coming in and eating them all. But it's just a sleeve that sits over the top. Okay?
How do you stop the white ants?
You keep it above the ground. How do you stop the white ants? You keep it above the ground. So you would sit that on just a few bricks. And this sleeve sits on top of the garden bed, so you keep that away from it.
Okay. One of the things you can do is put a bit of, if you get the cracker dust, if you put about between 50 and 75 millimetres of cracker dust around the edge.
Cracker dust. What's cracker dust?
Rock dust from the quarry. Put that
Blueberry.
around and the white ants won't go through it. They
Okay.
don't like it.
So there's the suggestion, having a wicking bed and putting or a wooden garden bedding and putting some blue metal or something like that around it, because the white ants don't like going through it. Beautiful
It's
suggestion.
actually one of the white ant preventatives nowadays without using chemicals.
Well, we need to find a way of getting it for free because we don't like buying things. So we need to have that.
Who says you have to buy?
Okay, well that's good, right, following the stream.
You said before that
That's it, all you need to
dry
shovel.
soil doesn't wick. I don't understand that.
Right,
Why is
okay.
wet soil better than dry soil?
Okay,
for
so
wicking?
it's all the question here is that the dry soil doesn't wick. In my experience, if you've got water at the bottom, and say I went away and I let it totally dry out and I go, oh my goodness, I've come back, and I just put water down the pipe, it's not going to move. In my experience, it doesn't move up unless I keep the soil moist. And in the summer, I would water this probably maybe once or twice a week. If it's that's what I do at home. Here, I think it's a little bit more intermittent. Sometimes it gets it and sometimes it doesn't. But normally, we're out there every day, aren't we, watering our gardens to keep them
I've
moist.
heard it said it's like priming the pump. If you wet the soil, then it will wet. But
Okay.
if you haven't primed the pump, it doesn't work.
Beautiful. It's like priming the pump. If we wet the soil, it's sort of like getting the liquid going. Yeah. So the little molecules can climb on top of each other.
You can't let it dry out at the bottom.
You don't want to let it dry out. And I find the plants are good because they're seeking the moisture, so you get nice strong plants and the roots go right down. They're beautiful.
How long do they last before you have to change all this?
How long do they last before you have to change it? If for some reason you get a bit of soil going through and it starts to get stinky, you would just put the water down the pipe and wash it out. Otherwise the soil is fine. The soil does go down because I've got very composty soil. I just keep adding worm castings and bit of stuff, and the mulch will break down as well, just like your normal garden bed, and just keep adding good stuff that you've made somewhere else. And you can have a little worm tower in there too if you want to have a little addition. If you've got a bigger one, have a little bit of pipe and put some worm castings there so the worms go in and out, because it's always nice and moist and they'll be really happy, and they're helping to keep your soil nice and fertile as well. But this doesn't cost anything. What's cost money? It's cost effort and time. Everything's been free. It's what you see. I look at a vacuum cleaner pipe now and think, that's gold, I'll have that, thank you very much. 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had a second look at a vacuum cleaner pipe. But now it's different. Okay, I think we're right.
Sorry, one more question. So you're watering it from the top?
Okay, now you're watering from the top. You're usually watering it down the pipe. If my plants are very little, and I'm worried that particularly lately the sun's been quite intense, it might dry out a little bit at the top before it's got a chance to kind of keep itself going. So when the plants are very little, I would keep watering it at the top. but your watering will be less, and then as you keep going and the roots get deeper, it'll be all fine.
And how do you know how much water to put down the pipe?
How much water do you put down the pipe? The pipe will tell you, because the pipe will start to exit the water out the side, because you've got a hole at the side. Yeah. Don't forget to put the hole in the side. So whoever takes this home today, I've got a bag of lovely peg compost and the thing there, so whoever wants it, I don't know how you work that out, they can just take it home, but yeah, you just need some mulch on the top, so you just keep your finger in it and keep it moist.
Maybe give us a question and whoever answers it can take
Oh
it.
no, that's far too complicated. Question and things. Yes, Trace.
Will that still work on the scale with the bathtub?
It works on the scale of the bathtub. The one in front of the tank is a bathtub. Yeah.
How difficult is it to put a hole in the side of the bathtub?
How hard is it to put a hole in the side of a bathtub? If it's an iron one, you need a special drill, but if you've got a fiberglass one, it's just a drill, just a round thing. And I have that size, and yeah, it's fine. All of these are. These ones here haven't got the exit, so we just wait for the water to run out the bottom. But if you're on a patio, you'd probably have an exit in the wood cover as well, so you could catch it.
Just like we've done, only just bringing the bit of pipe around to the level of where you want it to run out.
Okay, anything you wouldn't put in a wicking bed? I can't think anything that likes it really dry, yeah?
Root vegetable.
Carrots, onions?
Particularly sweet potatoes, because they fill up the space.
Oh, they fill up the space, okay.
That's
So
a different matter. I was just, because I think because I've just been trying it and experimenting, and I was like, oh, I wonder if it's because they're shallow roots.
I've got a blueberry in a wicking pot and it does
Really
beautifully.
well. Okay, there's probably some other factor that I'm, yeah, okay.
because the garden beds out the front in the big IBC containers, they've got fruit trees in them, so you can just do it at a bigger scale if you want to. And at the bottom of those is not pot plants; it's actually milk crates, still with the clothing in between and the carpet on the top.
And that's not too high, the milk crate. In that
Well, it's not. No, it's not too high. Water will only wick up 30 centimetres, so you have to make sure that if you've got a bigger one, that your roots are going to be in touch at least 30 centimetres from the water.
Peg, going back to your bar, you don't have to drill a hole in the side.
Oh, you can use the pipe.
You take the use the drain, connect the pipe to the drain, comes up the exact height you want, because water always finds its own level.
Yeah. Now this man should have done the wicking bed workshop.
No,
that's an excellent. It's very good, because we've got a few wicking beds here, which is what we've got.
Yeah.
And also, if you've got the drain that goes down,
And
you can actually make it go down and drain it out.
Hose for it.
And you can use the
Vacuum pipe for
the
it.
vacuum pipe for it. There you go, beautiful. Now, one thing, because we have to clear out of here pretty quickly because there's another group coming in at 12, is if anybody wanted to buy any worms, I actually used some worms for a little workshop earlier in the week. I know Eric probably wouldn't mind dishing out. $10 will give you enough worms to have a standard worm farm if anyone wanted to buy any worms before you go. But I've got lots here, Eric, that I've got to put back in. Okay, I think we need to go.
I'll take the mic off you if you like. Have you had enough?